Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Millennium Pod, a Star Wars podcast by me, Ari, at ari.in.space on TikTok and at Millennium Pod _ on Twitter and Instagram. If you have been listening, my Instagram handle did change because against my better judgment, I joined Twitter this week and I wanted them to be the same. This week, I have a wonderful guest, super excited. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Name, pronouns, where we can find you on social media, something else I would like you to plug for yourself, and why you like Star Wars, what got you into Star Wars. This is a Star Wars podcast.
Amazing. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Camilla. Pronouns are she, her. You can find me on TikTok at Boricua Wookie. And then a fun, special little plug I would like to do at this moment is that I am launching a Star Wars narrative podcast as well.
Woo-hoo!
So I'm hopping, woohoo's right. I'm hopping on the Bantha bandwagon, as I call it, and joining the podcast community. First episode we will drop next week, but the trailer is currently streaming. You can find that in my link in my bio on TikTok. It is called, I guess I should say the name. Yeah. It's called Beings of the Galaxy, Beings of the Galaxy Pod on Instagram. And again, you can find the link to the website on my TikTok. And that's Beings of the Galaxy. So excited to hear your thoughts. Star Wars, yes. How did I get into Star Wars? I have always been a massive nerd in general, and so that thus included Star Wars, but I was definitely more of a casual observer of Star Wars. I think the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters was Attack of the Clones on a whim when I was a kid. But when The Force Awakens was coming out, my sister and I did a rewatch of all of the movies that had come out at that point. And so kind of jump-started an interest for Star Wars. But then with The Rise of Skywalker coming out, did another full rewatch, got very into it. And then quarantine obviously happened pretty quickly after that. And I joined TikTok. Because I'm a nerd, somehow landed on nerd side of TikTok, which just included Star Wars TikTok, which also included Clone Wars and Rebels content. And I was like, I should check this stuff out. Binged the Clone Wars in like 3 months to catch up for the final season. Fell deeply in love with it, watched Rebels right after it. And then the rest is history. And so now here we are, a very, very deeply involved Star Wars fan who spends way too much time on Wikipedia researching things. So I'm sure we've all been there where we had a million tabs open. Wikipedia.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so that's my Star Wars journey, as they say.
I really love how, and it's not on purpose, but all of my guests so far have been like, yeah, I liked Star Wars, and then the sequels came out and I rewatched it and I liked to do it more, and then quarantine happened and here I am now with a TikTok page dedicated to Star Wars and whatnot, and oh my gosh, Wikipedia is like probably my most viewed website ever. It's kind of embarrassing. Like the amount, like, and I don't know about you, but like when I go on Wikipedia, I'm looking up something and then an hour later, I'm way not where I was supposed to be. It's like the YouTube wormhole, but it's Star Wars Wiki, like, because they have all the new pages linked, right? So I'm like, one time I was trying to look up hyperspace and I ended up on Count Dooku. I don't know.
What?
I don't know how that happened, but I had about 70 tabs open. I'm not even kidding. And anyway, Wikipedia is... The people who edit that are chef's kiss. Thank you so much.
Truly, I'm like, who are these people? And they edit it so quickly. They're just they're on top. Like you will watch, like an episode of The Bad Batch will come out, and like an hour after it airs, that info will be on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like, thank you, Star Wars. And
it's all, they have it like, I love how they have like the canon legends pages, so you can quickly check which is what, and they have all the books and all the comics, like everything's included, and reference episodes of like the Clone Wars and Rebels or things. It's incredible. But so that's our plug for Wikipedia to the listeners. In case you're not an avid Wikipedia reader, get on that. You can learn so much. But today's episode, I'm really excited for. It's something that I've recently gotten into in terms of like Star Wars, and that is all the politics in Star Wars. There's a lot, people love to say like, keep your politics out of my Star Wars, which is just hilarious to me. Like, sure, keep real world politics out if you want. Like, if you want to use Star Wars as an escapism, that's fine. But to say Star Wars isn't political is just wrong. Star Wars is inherently political across all the trilogies, books, TV shows. It's crazy. And I know, Camilla, you're very into it, so I'm very excited. Is there something like, so for me, what kind of got me going and realizing, oh my gosh, everything here is political and it's so exciting though, was the book Bloodline, which there will be spoilers in this episode for the book, very likely. So if you haven't read it, you care, pause, come back later and go read it. Everybody needs to read it. It's incredible. But that's what got me into it. And I was kind of wondering, like, what kind of spurred your Star Wars politics love?
Ooh, I think it's the prequel trilogy. The prequel trilogy is my favorite trilogy. I am so in love with the world building that George Lucas does in the prequel trilogy. It's like, it is some of the best world building, I think, across all media, period. The fact that we can be on Wikipedia and click on all of these different linked words that take us down these wormholes is truly just a picture of how much of a genius he is in creating world building. And then a lot of that then goes hand in hand with the politics. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of criticism against the prequels because of the political themes, like people talk about, oh, I don't care about the Trade Federation and taxation and the Phantom Menace. All I want to watch is the pod race. And that's totally fine. There are different things in Star Wars that appeal to different people. But for me personally, anytime we're in the Senate, anytime we're hanging out with Padme, anytime we're with Palpatine, I'm like fully clued in. And I think that interest was ramped up to a whole new level when I was doing my Star Wars rewatch before Rise of Skywalker came out, because I was older, I was more aware of the politics of our real world, seeing some of the parallels between the movies to the real world and using the movies to help understand what's going on in the real world, that's definitely the door that opened. And then I read Bloodline and I watched the Clone Wars and the rest is history. And I love the politics in Star Wars. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And the more I think about it, the more, like I said, I realize I'm like, there's not a thing that happens in Star Wars that really isn't politically charged. Like even the lightsaber battles in some capacity are. But that being said, I do want to start this. So we're kind of going to go through what I'm going to say are the four main eras of Star Wars that we know of right now, which would be, of course, prequel era with the Clone Wars and the prequels. And then we get Empire era, which is kind of going to be a bit the Bad Batch, as well as, Rebels, the original trilogy. And then the third one is, of course, New Republic / First Order. We don't have a lot about that, but I do find that period very interesting. And then kind of finish off with the newest era of Star Wars that we've been introduced to, which is of course the High Republic, which is fantastic. There will be spoilers for that as well, so if you haven't had the chance to read, for sure, Light of the Jedi. I'm halfway through Into the Dark, but I feel like we can talk about it. And definitely read those first because I don't want to be the cause of spoilers.
Yes.
But anyway, let's just get right into it. The first thing I kind of wanted to mention that I didn't really think of until you mentioned the Phantom Menace is actually the whole thing with the Trade Federation. Because I'm one of those people that, well, I shamelessly love the Phantom Menace. My first episode ever was about why the Phantom Menace is great. But I am obviously that person that's like, yeah, the pod race and Qui-Gon versus Maul, like, like the action scenes. But, in reflecting, the Trade Federation parts, I think is pretty important because it kind of sets up the climate of not only like the prequels, but especially the Clone Wars and kind of the way things were. And, like it really is our first introduction to what kind of is going on in this era with all the different sides. Because I mean, yes, it's the separatists versus republic, but I feel like there's kind of more, everybody has their own stake in it. And so I think that's really cool, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that, and then feel free to go into whatever from there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I fully agree with you that it's I think that the Trade Federation of it all in the Phantom Menace is one of the most confusing aspects, I think, of any of the Star Wars movies. And it's I definitely still, as much as I love it, I definitely still struggle to wrap my head around all of the machinations about like why exactly it was happening. I think what I've been thinking a lot about how like that transitions into the rest of the prequels and the prequel world and the Clone Wars is the revelation, of a lot of corruption within the Senate, and specifically Newt Gunray, and how he basically just gets away free after all of the crimes that he committed against Naboo and et cetera, et cetera. I guess for me, what I think is like super interesting about the whole Trade Federation is the introduction to Palpatine. And like you definitely get more of a sense of Palpatine's hand in it all if you read, I believe it's Queen's Peril, I think is the first. It's the quote unquote, I think it was released, I believe it was released second,
because they're like the same title almost. I haven't actually read them, but they're on my list.
They're very good, especially if you're a Padme fan, which Padme is one of my favorite characters. Definitely read them, and they also get more into the politics. And so in the way that Queen's Peril is set up is that it shifts perspectives, and then it starts with Queen Amidala's election, and then goes into the events of the Phantom Menace, and it shows how Palpatine is. It shows Sidious, and then it shows Palpatine, and it shows him playing both sides. Right. And so that's something that I really like about the Phantom Menace, is that you start seeing how much of a genius Palpatine is.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say he's a genius, like evil genius, but genius nonetheless.
Yeah, Palpatine is my favorite villain. And I'm constantly, every time I rewatch Clone Wars, rewatch the movies, go down rabbit holes on Wikipedia, read the books, and see the way that he truly orchestrated the Empire, it blows my mind, all of the different things he did. And you start seeing that in the Phantom Menace with the Trade Federation for sure.
Yeah, and I think that that was one of my reasons why in my episode 1 why the Phantom Menace I think is important. Should you start with it when you're showing new fans? Absolutely not. You should never start with the Phantom Menace, but I do think it's good for world building. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm biased. I like the movie. I think it's fun. Plot is, but it's good for world building. With Palpatine, here's a question. Do you think that there was any way that him becoming the Supreme Chancellor could have been avoided? Or do you think no matter what anybody did in the Senate, he would have found a way? Because, I mean, it was pretty easy, right? How, like, I mean, they were just like, okay, I guess he's the Supreme Chancellor now. Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah, you saying that reminds me of I just see in my head Palpatine sitting there next to Amidala, Queen Amidala, and just like whispering into her ear and basically getting her to get him elected to Supreme Chancellor. Oh gosh, it's so fantastic and it's so brilliant, even though it's so evil. Right. But he would have found a way.
Yeah.
100% he would have found a way. Because there are a couple times that you see throughout. I think you see this more in some of the books because they can get into it more.
Mm-hmm.
But where Palpatine, and even in the Clone Wars, Palpatine comes up to an obstacle, because he's not able to control people necessarily, but
Right.
he's able to influence people, and he does it very well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that people will do. For instance, Padme in the Clone Wars debanking regulation arc, which is one of my favorite arcs in Clone Wars. I love it so much. Like he's talking to Mas Amedda at the end of that episode and basically saying, it's strange how you can have all of this power, but the words of a single senator can shift your plans and shift the tide, is essentially what he's saying. And yeah, sure, he ran into an obstacle in that moment to accomplish a goal he thought he was going to accomplish, but he still took over the galaxy and the Empire still came about. He just had to detour. And that's, I think, the brilliance of Palpatine, is that he doesn't need to control people to bring about the Empire. He's an influencer.
Hashtag Empire.
Hashtag Empire influencer. That's Palpatine. And so he was able to use his genius he's adaptable. He's so incredibly adaptable, and is able to slither his way to the Empire in the Emperor position for sure.
So with that being said, because a lot of people, myself included, will say like the prequel era Senate, I guess it's like just the normal, like it's just Republic, right? Because old Republic's like old. So confusing with all the Republics, but the Republic Senate is, a lot of people are like, it's completely corrupted. It was flawed from the beginning, blah, 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 which I tend to agree with. But that being said, was it really corrupted, or was it just kind of like a normal political system that, a very evil genius like guy like Palpatine was able to like use to his advantage? Like, I don't know, is it an okay system if you have, not people trying to be dictators, or was it kind of set up so that someone could easily take advantage? Like, what would you think about that?
I think it was set up so Palpatine could take advantage. King Palps. So Palpatine could take advantage of it. I don't know if he had to work that hard, honestly, to take over the Empire, because there's already corruption in the Senate. There's evidence that senators are more focused on themselves. They're not focused on their constituents. There's the Outer Rim is being neglected, heavy taxation, that the people of the Republic are not being taken care of by their senators. And so, yeah, I think that it was primed for Palpatine to come in and use that to his benefit. He came in at the perfect time to turn into the Empire. So yeah, I think the Senate was ready for Palpatine to come in.
Yeah, no, sure. I would agree. Was it just me, or when you were reading Bloodline and they proposed the idea of first senator, was your first thought immediately, that's just Supreme Chancellor all over again? Like, did you guys learn nothing from the Senate of the Republic in now it's your new Republic? I just remember being like, hello, history really does repeat itself. Like, you guys, you can't go through with this. Did you learn nothing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at the same time, like they had Chancellor Lena Tsao, I think that's how you pronounce Lena's name in the High Republic. And I mean, that was working pretty well.
So far, anyway. I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm so interested to see, is how does the High Republic turn into the Galactic Republic, and how does it fall? How do we get? Because it seems like they're all and we'll talk about the High Republic later. But yeah. It definitely set off an alarm bell, but also at the same time, it's like they don't really have anyone. It's clear that there's evidence in Bloodline that what they are doing without somebody in charge in the position that Mon Mothma was in, it's that is not working for them, that they are just arguing and there's no guidance, you know, and so the argument could be made that, you know, you put somebody into that position, it's not necessarily about the position, it's about who do you put in the position. Because Palpatine in the position, obviously we know how that turned out, but
bad.
exactly. But it just makes me think about, you know, Anakin in Attack of the Clones, when he's talking with Padme and he's like, we need a system where the politicians sit down, discuss with the best interest of all people and do it. And then what does he say? And then he's like,
she's like, isn't she like, you're describing a dictatorship? And he's like, well, if it works.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Padme's like, that's what we do, dude. And he was like, then we need somebody in charge that can make them basically do it. She's like, that's a dictatorship. But here's the thing.
Padme, that was a big red flag, girl. You missed it.
Yeah, right. The filmmaking in that scene wants us, it implies to us as the audience that Anakin has these kind of crazy views that we should be wary of. You know, the music is playing, we're on his face, Padme is unsettled, we're unsettled. However, Anakin's essentially saying that we need somebody in charge. I don't want like a crazy person in charge, but what if we had a really good person in charge, a really good person who actually was for the people, who was for the Republic, who everyone could rally behind? Then isn't that a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that in Bloodline, that's the question of, what if we had a benevolent dictatorship?
Well, isn't that's kind of the vibe that what's his face in Bloodline, Ransom, is that how you say it? Like Ransom, I don't know.
Ransom Casterfo, I think.
Yeah. Who is at first, like, I think he's probably one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars. I don't know if he's good or bad necessarily, because, you know, we only get him for the book. But like, I have never felt so many emotions towards a character reading, because when we first meet him, like, he seems like arrogant, cocky, you know, that typical kind of guy, kind of Anakin vibes, like in personality, like, I don't know, I kind of got that vibe. And then, you know, Leia goes to his office and it's like Empire paraphernalia everywhere. And she's like, what the hell? And I'm reading this and I'm like, yeah, what the hell?
Right.
and but then we find out, you know, like, he didn't actually necessarily like the Empire. He actually just thought that, you know, some semblance of what they were trying to do was going to be okay, which like, you know, like that control, because he's with the party. I think they're the centrists, right?
Correct.
That want more control, right? For all the different planets, which is just like, it's very interesting, because the way he's, like, you can see, like, you're like, okay, like, yeah, you're not completely crazy, but the way you're going about it is kind of weird. But then he also hates Vader, which is like a good sign, obviously. That was really the thing that I was like, oh, okay, maybe he's not like terrible. But I mean, we see that theme kind of, I guess the whole point of that little ramble was, we see this theme of somebody needs to be in control crop up all the time in Star Wars. And I think what's really difficult about that is that there's so many different planets, so many different species, cultures. Like, you imagine, like, we can barely, like, you're American and I'm Canadian, and we can barely agree within our own countries about who should lead. And then you think about like, imagine trying to like have even like a government of North America. Like, that would be a disaster, let alone the whole world, which has like, what, 190 some countries. And then you think about Star Wars, which has way more planets than that, and they're trying to like all pick one person. Like, it's sort of doomed to fail, this whole idea that we need one leader in Star Wars. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. It hurts my brain when I think about, there's like, when in the Clone Wars, when I think it's when they introduce Satine and the narrator says something along the lines of, Duchess Satine of Mandalore has head up the Council of Neutral Systems, which is like 1,500 star systems. And I was like, 1,500? One lady's in charge of 1,500 star systems?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm like, what does it even look like? Like, yeah, it's it's definitely, I think, really hard to, it's one of those things that I don't think there will ever be able to properly illustrate it through our lens and our understanding of, planet Earth.
Yeah.
because I always have to, because I think about that all the time, and I always have to just remind myself that it is fantastical.
Yes.
It is fiction. Yes. Like, it's not gonna make sense 100%, but still it's always like good to think about, because it does raise other questions and other issues that are always great to discuss.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know, just like thinking about, and I mean, not all the species are humans, but everyone's like humanoid, right? So similar tendencies. And it's just like thinking about how, like, in real life, and again, like you said, it is fake and in space, but like just thinking about in real life how we can like I said, barely agree within one country that has, however many million people, compared to, all these systems of stars. And there's a lot of people. Like, I was reading Lost Stars, and when they mentioned like how many people lived on Alderaan, I was like, what the heck? Like, it's a lot. It's like a billion or something like that. Did not expect that, because I always picture Star Wars as like, each planet's like a little country, but no, there's a lot of people that you have to try to appease. And so I feel like that's very telling of why, shit keeps happening in Star Wars, because there's so many different, and they're like, how are you going to please everybody? You're not. And the only way you can try is, that's how you get something like the Empire and the First Order, really. Like, that's the only semblance of control you're ever going to get, because when you have, when you're trying to have people being able to advocate for what they want, you get things that happen like in Bloodline in the New Republic, where the Senate is just deadlocked and nothing's happening. So it's so, I get so excited about this. This is so great.
It's such a great topic. If you are listening in and you are not necessarily into Star Wars politics at all, I encourage you to give it a second chance, because it is truly fascinating, and you don't even have to look at it in terms of real world politics. Just the world of Star Wars independently is it's fascinating.
And that's like, I got Bloodline out of the library because I was like, oh, somebody recommended this, like, whatever. And it's about Leia, who, like, I like Leia, but like, she's average to me until I read Bloodline. Now
there we go. That was my question. That was my question, how you felt about her after Bloodline.
No. She, like, Claudia Gray, chef's kiss once again. I have Leia, like the Leia book by Claudia Gray, side note, which I'm so excited to read. But anyway, Bloodline, I read the description of it when I got it from the library, like, not before, and I'm glad I didn't read it before, because I probably wouldn't have ordered it, because it sounds very political, and I was kind of like, well, I don't have anything else to read right now, whatever, I'll read it. Read it in like a day and a half. It's so good. It's like, it doesn't even feel like politics, really. Like, it really, that's the nice thing about Star Wars politics, I guess. Like, as much as, I use Star Wars as a form of escapism, even when I'm talking about like Star Wars politics, I don't feel burdened down like I do when I'm talking about real world politics.
Yeah. 100%.
So yeah, I've said it before, I'll say it again forever. Bloodline's really good. Give it a chance. It gives a lot of like interesting perspectives that I'm sure we'll get back to again. But yeah, I don't know. Love Star Wars politics. The one thing that, well, there's multiple things, but one thing I can think of right now that I would like to talk about is kind of the Empire and the politics that go with that, because I find it so interesting. Yes. The Empire is obviously horrible, right? But there's like some good people, I would say, that are serving it. Like, I know you're either about to read or have read Lost Stars. I don't know how far.
I think I have This is the internal question between you and a couple other folks.
I'm just waiting. Like...
you are not alone. So many, as of whatever day it is today, I have not read Lost Stars.
It's okay. That's okay.
I did buy it. I have the hardcover sitting on my couch. I think I have like 4 more books to finish. My plan, here's my goal. My goal is by the end of next week, I will start, since I'm saying that now, that means I have to start it by the end of
this is on the record.
So I will, as soon as I'm starting it, I will make a TikTok video and I will tag you and the other people who've been yelling at me to read it. So you are all aware. But no, I have not read it yet.
That's fine. That's fine. The point I was going to make is not, I wouldn't say it's a spoiler because it's basically in the description of the book, but there's the 2 characters who were like, all their romance aside, which is just amazing. But they grew up on like a backwater outer rim, really not good planet that was crappy. And the Empire showed up. Tarkin shows up in like the first 2 pages. I was so mad. Man, I was so mad. I hate that guy.
Worse.
But he shows up and they're doing this whole like big propaganda, join the Empire and your life will be better. And basically the 2 characters, as like I said, it says pretty much in the description / the first chapter, decide to join the Empire eventually because they want to learn how to fly and they want to be pilots. And that's it. And the same with like Han in Solo. He joins the Empire because he wants to learn how to fly. And I would say that all of these characters are good people inherently, even though like Lost Stars is so good. Like the drama of it. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about now for fear of accidentally spoiling anything. However, I will say that the characters in Lost Stars who do things for the Empire, here and there, it's really interesting to read because their rationalization is like, well, somebody does have to be in charge, and without noticing. I mean, again, in the description, you find out that the one guy defects after he's seen so many atrocities of the Empire, but it's just like, at first glance, the Empire did seem like kind of something helpful, something better for a lot of people, especially those on, the outer rim and stuff. And I think it's really interesting to think about the use of propaganda that the Empire absolutely would have had to use. But I don't know. This whole era, it's just like, because in the original trilogy, we're shown the Empire sucks and is horrible, and that's it, basically, right?
Right.
And everybody who's in it is horrible. But like, I would argue that like a lot of people didn't know exactly to the full extent of how horrible it was, and they were told straight up, the rebels are terrorists. Like, if you think of it from that point of view, it's like, okay, it's like the whole, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, right? And it's just like, it's so good. But that leads me into kind of in the Bad Batch. How are we feeling about my boy Crosshair? Because I know, like, I don't know, like, is he still like, so when I talk about these other characters who've made the conscious choice to join the Empire, I think they're still good in them. They're still good in him. No, but you know what I mean? But then you get someone like Crosshair who's being forced, like, I think you were talking about it. I can't remember, probably was you, but just like of how, he's being forced and is he still a good person, or like, if he can't fight it off, I don't know. It gets confusing and complicated because, as far as we can tell, he's being controlled, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I don't know. Who knows what's happening? There's just like a lot to think about. And it's interesting because on the one hand, we have, like I said, the people who are choosing to be part of the Empire. On the other hand, we have people who are forced into it. And it's like, are they all still good? Are they still bad? Like, I don't know.
For sure. Yeah. It's the question of like free will, and the question of, like how in control Crosshair is. And I think only time will tell. Like, it is mind boggling to me that we are only 4 episodes into the Bad Batch. And we have so much delicious information about this time, because I don't think we have much it's not like Clone Wars where we had 2 movies prior to the Clone Wars to go off of. We knew we were working toward Revenge of the Sith. It's not like Rebels where we had I feel like, I don't know if we had comics when Rebels came out. Again, I watched Rebels like a year ago.
Yeah, I only just finished Rebels like a month and a half ago, so I don't know. I think the comics came out a bit later, I think.
Probably. Yeah, so then maybe it's similar to that, but with the Bad Batch, it's like this is happening right. We don't have much information about this time period, so which I am loving, because it's really giving us a chance to be more open-minded about the stories being presented, and particularly the Empire, because like you were saying, the Empire as we've seen it up until this point it is the big bad. And I think a lot of times that we need to remember that we are omniscient viewers of Star Wars. We know all the pieces. We know the bad people. We know exactly who the bad people are, and we know why. We know who the good people are and why, because we know all the conversations. But the people within the Bad Batch time period, within the Rebellion period, all of these periods, the background people, all they know is that the Clone Wars was devastating. A lot of planets really suffered, and they're tired of war. And this Palpatine, who's been a fantastic leader, ended the Clone Wars. These mystical Jedi obviously tried to kill him, hence his appearance. And he's saying that now the Clone Wars is over, and thus to protect the galaxy, we're going to go into the Empire. Of course they're going to cheer to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, of course they're going to be pumped about that. They're so tired and so fed up with war. It completely makes sense to me. And so that's why I think it's important to put ourselves in the shoes of those characters. But like, yeah. So then again, it makes sense why not Crosshair specifically, but like why there are good people within the Empire, because they genuinely believe that is the good, that it is good, because there's unity for the first time in a long time. There's no arguing between senators. We are being protected. There's no war. They're stopping these terrorists who are attacking our homes on Ryloth and Onderon and all of these places. And so it makes sense then why like there are good people within the Empire, because they really think that it is good. With Crosshair, yeah, I think it's interesting, because I personally don't believe he is in control of his actions, because Omega says he isn't, and I'm inclined to believe her. Because in my mind, she's perfect and can do no wrong.
Yes.
Because I love her so much. A perfect child.
Literally the perfect child. I would do anything for her.
anything for Omega. Like, you say the word, I'm there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like she said it a couple times. So I'm inclined to believe like Crosshair is maybe aware of what he's doing, but he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't have control, or he's like heavily influenced, and he hasn't learned how to break free from that control yet, unfortunately.
Do you think, here's a fun question, because this was going around for a bit when the Bad Batch trailer came out, and people were like, oh, Crosshair's not with them, like, did he join the Empire? And a lot of that discourse wasn't, oh, his chip activated, it was, oh, he joined the Empire. So do you think if he realizes what's happening, do you think he's gonna stay, or do you think he's gonna try to get out? Because like, I don't know, like, I'm not sure, because when his chip first activated, you could tell that he was still sort of like not activated at the same time, right? Because then we see, later on, they enhanced the chip. And already when in his, like, I'll say half activated state, he was still like, we got to do what we're told, So to me, that like kind of leads me to believe like maybe he's going to stay. And maybe not because he necessarily believes that what is happening is right, but because again, he's very like, we got to do what we're told. I don't know. But then again, at the same time, I'm like, but he did say good soldiers follow orders, which indicates to me that his chip was fully activated, because that's what happened to Tup in my personal favorite arc of the Clone Wars in season
Yes.
6.
So
And so
good.
I'm so torn, because I'm like, this guy. And I mean, I think I'm a bit biased because I never liked him in season 7. Thought he was kind of arrogant and rude. I was like, get out of my way, toothpick man.
Yeah.
But now I'm like kind of forced to feel bad for him. And like I do genuinely, but it's just like, I wonder, like, what are you gonna, because inevitably, like, he's gonna have some kind of reckoning at some point where he realizes he's might being mind controlled. Like I'm sure of that. But I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do when that happens? Like,
Right.
I don't know.
I feel like because the Bad Batch's whole thing is we do what we want to do, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That makes me think that when Crosshair, and I'm saying when because I'm hopeful that it will happen, when he is able to retain full autonomy of his mental state, that he will leave or try to get out, if that's what the circumstances look like if he becomes fully lucid while still within the Empire's controls. I feel like he'll try to get out because he could resent them for making him do everything that he was doing.
True.
The thing is that we don't have much information on Crosshair. We don't have much character development about. We have 4 episodes where he maybe said what, like 10 words.
Yeah.
And was
shot
in the background.
Some people. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is brilliant on the part of the writers, of the Bad Batch to do that, because we don't know where we stand with Crosshair before this. No. So we don't have much to go off of. So we're in the dark as much as maybe the other characters are. But I believe that if he comes to realize, and overcomes his programming, that he will try to break away from the Empire simply because he knows that it's wrong. At least I hope so.
Yeah, that's true. That's good optimism.
I try to be. I'm a very optimistic person, and I try to be positive and everything.
I do recall you saying you wanted Wrecker's chip to activate. Let everybody listening know Camilla wants Wrecker's chip to activate.
I do. The storytelling. The storytelling would be fantastic. Yes, but here's the thing. This is part of the reason why I think I want it, is because I've heard theories saying that they're pushing it that we think it's going to be Wrecker's chip that activates, but it's really actually going to be Hunter's. And I
put that kind of fear in me. I cannot know.
Now you can join me in no, but that's why I'm over here like, please let it be Wrecker, please let it be Wrecker. Because I'm like, anyone but Hunter, I would not be able to emotionally handle Hunter's chip activating and how Omega would react. Like I'm getting hot and sweaty.
Yeah, you're gonna make me cry just thinking about that.
I just have a picture in my head of like him turning slowly, and Omega's there, and she's like, I'm not even gonna try her little accent. She's like, Hunter, and then he's like, good soldiers follow.
Oh my god!
If that comes out of Hunter's mouth, I will cry.
I think I'll quit Star Wars, to be honest. Like, I've handled a lot in Star Wars, but I don't think, no. Like, I already had to handle the sadness of Din giving up Grogu, and that was hard enough because that was voluntary. But no, I can't. Oh my! Oh,
again.
Okay.
So wouldn't you rather Wrecker's chip activate?
Okay, when you put it like that, I guess, but only because Hunter's the dad and Wrecker's very clearly the uncle. But Wrecker, like Uncle Wrecker vibes, are just so wholesome. Like, make it Tech. He probably wouldn't just like shoot any of them, to be honest. Like, Tech's like the least violent one out of them, so it'd be fine.
Tech would be like, what is the most logical thing for me to do now that I'm under the control of this chip?
Tech would be like, let me just take all the life support off this ship and hope for the best. I feel like that would be okay. Maybe that would be bad too. I don't know.
Bad.
There's no scenario where this is gonna be good. None of them.
Oh man.
None of them can. I can't. Plot twist. Omega has a chip. It gets activated.
Man. There are two things that I know will break my heart the most in the series, and that is if Hunter's chip activates, and I really hope it never happens, but if Omega loses all of her innocence and all of her optimism and all of her hopeful spirit, that will just make me so sad.
Yeah, because she's really like a very good and like one of the only examples of Star Wars of just like that hopeful optimism and youth, and it's very much needed, especially in such a dark time. That is, the beginnings of the Empire. The wonderful, horrible Empire, the very interesting yet terrible Empire. The one thing I do think is really interesting about the Empire is how much the underlings that I quote are like good people, like the ones who just want to learn how to fly, are they don't really know a lot of what's going on, but I find it very interesting the kind of like battles, I guess, between like the upper ranking Imperial officers, like to be that number one. And I've seen it happen a lot. I feel like it's coming in the Bad Batch slightly. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a focus, but I can see it is between Tarkin and the other guy. I'm blanking on his name right now, who has his like
Rampart, I believe.
Yeah. You can like already tell, they're kind of like, who's gonna be the leader. And I mean, we see in Rogue One between like Krennic is just pure jealousy of Tarkin. And I mean, you get that in the movie. In the novelization, you actually get like some chapters like from his point of view, and he's just like bitter, angry, mad, and he's like, Tarkin's stealing my glory, blah, 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 the Death Star was mine. And I think that's very interesting, just like the lengths they'll go to kind of secure, being Palpatine's right-hand man. Like, who would want to be his right-hand man? He's scary. But
it's power. It's all about
it's so power. Yeah, exactly. But I find it very interesting, just these people and like how aggressive. And even in I don't know if you read A New Dawn, but it's the Kanan and Hera novel.
I think it's the one I read before Lost Stars.
Okay, it's really good actually. I really enjoyed it. It made me honestly, the books just keep making me like characters more. Like I didn't dislike them before, but it made me really like Kanan. But there is a character in it who's like this Empire lord, whatever, high up guy, and he's like, I'm so glad I've never seen him in live action because I'm terrified of this man. But again, like the lengths he's going in this book to impress Palpatine is just like, it's so interesting. I don't know. Because on the one hand, like I said, you have the Empire, which is basically made of a few of these crazy people who are actual evil people, creating weapons of mass destruction, enslaving people. But most of the Empire is built off of deceiving, young, sad people whose life sucks. And the Empire is like that chance for a better thing. And it's kind of like what you were saying too, with like how the Empire is kind of providing peace, quote unquote, after the Clone Wars. And a lot of people, like, they just wanted peace, didn't care what they had to give up to get it, which is just Star Wars, man. It goes deep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, like it goes back to the picture of how brilliant like Palpatine is, that he was able to get the galaxy into a state of complete submission where they were all like, yes. And even like separatists were like, I'm so tired of this. Like, yes, we will submit to the rule of the Galactic Empire. And then you talked a little bit about propaganda a little bit ago. And this is a book recommendation for you. I don't know if you've heard of it. I have it next to me actually right here. So I'm going to show it. If
anyone's watching on YouTube, they can see it too.
Yes. So this isn't the cover. The cover is over on my couch, but this is called Star Wars Propaganda. And essentially it's like a collection of art, of propaganda art throughout.
That's kind of cool.
It is incredible. It goes from the Galactic Republic, so like episode 1 all the way to Force Awakens, I believe. but like this is a poster that's like a propaganda poster, support the boys in white, which is the clones, and they talk about how like Palpatine didn't commission art for the Jedi because the Jedi were like, we don't want to be the center of this war. But then again, that was able to get the public distant from the Jedi. So then when Palpatine said the Jedi tried to kill me, they're like, oh yeah, the Jedi we hate the Jedi, but like the clones are the heroes of the Republic. And there's a lot of propaganda art in here about recruitment, and trying, they talk about like here's an example that I just flipped to, like enlist in the Empire. And there's some that paint that talk about like, oh, look at these rebel terrorists. Don't be, let me find it. There's one, here it is. Do you think they want peace? Rebels are terrorists.
That's the thing that really, and you'll notice this too, like when you're reading Lost Stars, is just like that kind of blew my mind was how, and that I never thought of before, was just like how aggressively the Empire's painting the rebels as terrorists. Yeah. And how like the Empire, like how they're, the people working for the Empire are believing that 100%. And it's just like, again, goes to show like, A, like the effective perspective on things, and B, like, again, propaganda. I'm absolutely going to be purchasing that book as soon as we're done recording here, because that looks so cool. And I'm really like, I find, all these kinds of like, I took a class last semester, and it was like totalitarianism in the 1900s. And it was, I'm a physics student, but that was one of the coolest classes I've taken, because I just I find it so interesting because like you hear about in history, like, Stalin's Russia or USSR, whatever, and like Hitler's Germany and Mussolini's Italy. And you're like, how did that happen? Like, what? Right. But then you learn about how it happened, and it's like, that could happen. Like, it's so, I don't know, like, it's so, as horrible as these like different regimes are in the real ones and the Empire, I just find it so interesting to like learn how they happened and why. And it's just, so I'm definitely buying that book. All that to say, that's really cool. I'm very excited to read it, because propaganda is like, it's incredible how much, pictures can sway people. Like, that's crazy.
It's and it even like has propaganda from like the rebellion would then release their own propaganda. There's like, they enlist an artist I think you've heard of. Her name is Sabine Wren, and she has like some of her own art in the book.
Oh my goodness.
She creates artwork that's about like enlist in the rebellion, join the rebellion. This is what the Empire is actually doing. And what I love about this book is that especially with like the rebellion time period, is it illustrates how the rebellion came together through the artwork and through the propaganda, and that up until the Death Star blew, until Alderaan was destroyed, the rebellion was super fragmented. Like Mon Mothma and a lot of folks in the rebellion still believed in being able to negotiate their way to peace. Yes. And then their entire mission kept being disrupted because there were these other organizations, these other rebel cells led by Cham Syndulla and Saw Gerrera that were attacking civilian targets. And then the Empire would use that as propaganda to say like the rebels are terrorists, and then it wasn't until they blew up Alderaan that the galaxy was like, oh no, these guys are bad. And so then that's when the Rebel Alliance was like truly able to unite, because that's what it was. The Empire was more united than the rebellion was, and until the rebellion could be united under all of these different factions, they were never going to win. And so the biggest, I don't want to say this because it's horrible, but it's like blowing up Alderaan was maybe one of the best things to happen for the rebellion, to be able to to actually take down the Empire.
100%, because like, to be fair, you could say that Saw Gerrera's cell was a bit terroristy. But again, like you said, there was all these different rebel cells, right? There was the ones that were trying to negotiate, and there was ones that were doing whatever they wanted. And so yeah, like you said, 100% Alderaan, like it's terrible. When you read that part in Lost Stars, you're gonna be real sad. But
no, not my dude, Bail.
Oh my gosh, I love Bail. As a complete side note, I think Bail is one of the coolest characters in Star Wars who I do not want a main series about. Like, I have no desire to ever read a book about Bail, ever watch a show that's focused on Bail. But like every time he shows up in Star Wars, in a book, in like the show when he rescues Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, I'm just like, wow, I love that guy. Like, I don't know what it is. I just maybe it's Jimmy Smits, like probably, but like just like I don't know. He's such a solid dude. I feel like he's doing his best. I mean, he raised Leia, and she's pretty freaking great.
She's pretty great.
She probably did something right.
They did, I love, and I would just love some more like Brea content, because like the two of them together, like we talk a lot about like, oh, Bail is the one that started Fulcrum, you know, organizing the Fulcrum agents with Ahsoka and then Cassian and others, but like we don't talk enough about how Brea's like helping fund the rebellion as Queen of Alderaan, you know, and how it wasn't like just Bail that was like building the rebellion with Mon Mothma, but Brea was a very essential part of that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I got this, because first of all, it's Claudia Gray.
Yes,
it's Leia by Claudia Gray, by the way, for those not actually watching. Because I was super into, and still am into, Leia's story after Bloodline. Claudia Gray is like the most incredible, can do no wrong. I started reading some of her non-Star Wars novels just to like get more. And 3, apparently you get to see a lot more of Brea, and I'm just so excited because, you know, we don't have a lot of dope women in Star Wars. The ones we do are pretty great, but there's not a whole lot. So I'm very excited to see one, especially like an older, because that's I think what I really liked about Leia and Bloodline, was to see her, you know, older and, you know, more mature, more wise, been through more, less kind of impulsive, because she knows that doesn't always work out. But yeah, I don't know, it's so Star Wars, man, it's just it's incredible. Going back to the more specifically politics side of this conversation, I do want to talk about like New Republic. I'm really sad that they've decided to put Rangers of the New Republic on the back burner, slash may never even happen now, because I was really excited for that, because I think this time period between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens is so interesting, because it's quite short. It's like 30-ish years, and somehow everything fell apart again. And so I love the content of like how that happened. And again, Bloodline, this is like the 80th plug for Bloodline in this podcast. I know there's like a few, I haven't read any of the other novels, but they're on my list. I think there's like Alphabet Squadron and stuff. It's like kind of those vibes. But what I did want to ask you is, do you think that the First Order, because it rose in sort of a different way than the Empire did, because it was very much more like a combined effort, right? It was less one person being in charge. I mean, we see in Bloodline, it's a combined effort between, you know, paramilitary groups and some senators. But do you think that the Senate was set up in a way that, and given like our limited knowledge, we don't know a lot about this, but do you think the Senate was kind of set up in a way that again allowed this to happen? Same as my Palpatine question, like, do you think it was kind of doomed because of the way they decided to set up the New Republic Senate?
Yeah, I think yes, I would say the short answer is yes. Because they might have been like, Mon Mothma, I think, might have been a little too optimistic.
Oh yeah, love that girl, thinking, but a little too hopeful.
Right. Like it was like the Empire was one extreme, and the New Republic was the complete opposite extreme. And obviously it felt like the New Republic was set up in a way where they were like, that won't happen again. So we can just keep going about our business. And yeah, there's like this threat over here, but they haven't broken the galactic coordinates yet. So we'll just let them keep doing their thing and keep bickering within the Senate. And then again, I think it goes back to the question of there's no leader, there's no like central person guiding the republic and making sure that things happen. It was like when they proposed first senator, the populist Leia's party was at first like so against it because I believe we're supposed to understand that like the populist party are made up more folks who were alive and around during the empire versus centrists or more younger folks who see the good in the empire. Because again, like the interaction when Leia and Ransom Casterfo first, it's one of their first conversations where they're talking. It's one of my favorite just conversations in Star Wars period. And Ransom saying like, I'm not for the emperor, but you can't deny that some of the aspects of the empire worked. And Leia's like, it came at too high a cost though. And Ransom's like, things right now aren't great though, so you kind of have to pick and choose. But all that to say, I don't think the New Republic was ready at all to tackle the First Order. And then the First Order did what the Empire couldn't in blowing up the entire New Republic, and the entire Hosnian system. Like that was pretty brilliant of them to do, because rather than uniting the rebellion like the destruction of Alderaan did, it was like, okay, Leia, you and the Resistance, you're literally all the galaxy that's left.
Imagine if Leia would have still been on Hosnian Prime. Oh my goodness.
Oh, don't. I have not imagined that, but now
because Leia really was the backbone of the Resistance. Like,
yes.
It's a good 100%. Thing that her dying wish was for Ben to turn, because otherwise I don't think they would have won. Like without Leia, I hate to say it, but like it was a disaster. Like you saw in The Last Jedi, for like the hot 20 minutes that Leia was out, nobody knew what was happening. It was chaos.
Oh my gosh. My gosh.
Anyway,
going off of that, that brings up such an interesting point, because I've heard people make arguments like Leia would make a much better Jedi than Luke. Like Leia should have been the Jedi over Luke, when like I think it's The Empire Strikes Back, from a sort of point of view anthology, where Yoda talks about that he rather would have trained Leia over Luke. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying. I think it's really good Leia wasn't a Jedi, because I don't think Luke could have done in the Senate what Leia did in the Senate.
No.
Like if Leia was not in the Senate, I think the New Republic would have fallen. One, it would have fallen so much faster. Two, there would have been no resistance, like, because in Bloodline is essentially her, they do this investigation, get rid of the Amaxian warriors, I believe is their name.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, look, I have all of this artillery. Oh, perfect. Let me just hold this on hand for the resistance, which
she's like, hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for keeping all these bombs. Like, that's great.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, maybe she would have made a better Jedi, but she was needed in the Senate far more than with the Jedi.
I really like that we find out that Leia was training Rey. Like, I think that's really cool. And definitely like people are always like Leia or Rey took the Skywalker name because of Luke. And I'm like, no. She took it because of Leia. Like technically, yes, Leia's Organa, but like, no, like
no.
And I love Luke. Do not get me wrong. I love Luke. One of my favorite characters. But if Luke would have been in the Senate, $10 says that he would have immediately been like, yeah, so Vader is great. He like saved us all.
Yeah.
And not had that discretion. That was the one thing I really liked in Bloodline too, was how Leia would talk about how like Luke was so relieved and he found peace in knowing that Vader was, in the end, a good guy, quote unquote. But Leia just couldn't see that because she wasn't there on the Death Star, and her only memories were Vader torturing her and then blowing up her home planet, right? And I just found that so interesting, and it got me thinking too, like as the audience, we know that Vader is redeemed, but nobody else does. Like Luke is literally the only one probably in the entire galaxy who has quote forgiven him, like, which is really interesting because, like you said, you know, as the outsider, as the audience, you know, that's what we see. But yeah, no, Luke absolutely is dumb enough that he would have been like, hey guys, so my dad is Vader and he's actually pretty dope and I got him to turn back. So welcome to the Senate. Gosh. Whereas Leia like had the discretion, you know, to not tell everybody, which I think was mostly a good idea. Should have told Ben, absolutely. But but even when, you know, it did get found out that Vader was her father and everyone was like hating on her, you know, I think she addressed it really well, was like, yeah, he sucks. Sorry, guys. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm not the same, but yeah, no, 100%. All this to say, Leia needed to be in the Senate. She needed to be able to find out what was going on so that she would have that information and, you know, understand the necessity of forming the resistance. 1000%. Like Luke could never. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
like
dude.
I said, I love Luke, but Luke could never. Like, Buddy Boy barely even wanted to come back in The Last Jedi. So
right, she's been training for that role her entire life since she was a kid. Like,
well, because she was like, wasn't she a senator in like the quote Imperial Senate for a while until that all got disbanded? So like, she knows.
Right. Yeah. There's no way the New Republic would have lasted as long as it did, which kind of surprising. It did last as long as it did without Leia in the Senate. Like she was the last, she was truly the last line of defense against the First Order. And when it was, I mean, you see it obviously, like Lady Carice was like, this is perfect fodder to get rid of our last enemy in the Senate for the First Order to come about. So that let's get this out there, because as soon as she was discredited, like that's the turning point. The First Order could really come up and do their thing. Speaking, I just remembered something that I wanted to ask you. Okay, so you know Cora Stella, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Her intern, I think, was her position.
Yeah.
So I've recently found this out, in The Force Awakens, when Starkiller Base blows up Hosnian Prime, and they have that shot of there's like the woman in the very front, and she's kind of the main focus. Yeah. She's in all of pictures. That is Corey.
No.
Yeah, that's Corey. Because I looked up Corey. I was like, I should look her up, and it was a picture of her, and I was like, no, that's Corey. Leia would send Corey to the Senate as her envoy, because like Leia's whole thing with the Resistance was, the Resistance is going to be a paramilitary operation, you know, as the defense of the New Republic, but also we're going to investigate into the First Order to show. To prove to the Senate that the First Order is breaking the Galactic Concordance, you know, and like Corey would go to the Senate as Leia's envoy and be Leia's voice in the Senate. And that's her. She was on Hosnian Prime.
So sad. I always wondered who that lady was supposed to be, because like they could have just as easily kind of done like a pan of all the like however many people were just standing there screaming, but they like very clearly showed like her. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. I thought you were gonna say, because you know how Carrie Fisher's daughter plays like the one girl who's like part of the Resistance. I don't even know if she has a name, but she probably does. I thought that's what you were gonna say it was, and I was like, oh, dope. But now I'm sad.
No, that's who I thought it was, because I was after I read Bloodline and was thinking about it a little more, just like later on, I was like, I was like, oh, I wonder if Corey is in the movies, and I thought it was I'm Billy Lord, is Carrie Fisher's daughter. I thought it was her, and I Googled her, and it was like, she's a different name. I was like, okay, so it's not her. And then when I looked up Corey, and it was that woman's picture, I was like, no, it's her. She died on Hosnian Prime. It's so sad.
Especially because like I really like the whole Corey and Leia relationship, you know, how she came back after feeling betrayed. Like it was a very wholesome. I probably cried, honestly. But it was just like so sweet, and it was like, I don't know, it was very nice to see Leia with like a protege. But oh man,
I'm sorry.
There goes Star Wars making me sad again. Like, am I surprised? I literally people die all the time in Star Wars and I act really shocked, but like it's called Star Wars. So like I don't know why I act shocked every time somebody dies, because it's to be expected.
I know.
Anyways, yeah. The last thing I do want to talk about is going way back 200 years to the High Republic, which is so interesting. And it feels like, you know, the three trilogies of Star Wars, they kind of like, they're all very different vibes, aspects, but they all kind of feel very similar at the same time. And I mean, as we've been discussing, like history kind of repeats itself with, you know, corrupt Senate breeds fascism, corrupt Senate breeds fascism. Like it just repeats itself. But I do find like the High Republic feels very different, and I'm sure that's because it's, you know, set 200 years before the Phantom Menace, but it feels very different with like a hint of Star Wars, and I really like it. Like, yeah. I really like seeing, like you mentioned earlier, Chancellor So seems like super great so far anyway. I thought she handled the whole hyperspace disaster in Light of the Jedi decently well. I mean, as well as you probably could in that situation. I mean, it's kind of like, as far as I'm concerned, if Chancellor So was here now in our world, she would have handled the coronavirus pandemic a lot better than,
oh my gosh,
any of the leaders we got going here. Like both countries. I'm dissing both Canada and the US right now. Like I really think Lena So, like, we would be like Australia if she was the lady.
There you go. Oh, that's a good one.
But like net worth, I think she's pretty cool, and I really like how her partnership of not just her necessarily, but like the whole Republic with the Jedi is. It's very like, because the whole point of the High Republic is it's showing us like how the Jedi were supposed to be, but it's also showing us how the relationship between the Republic and the Jedi should be, and how it can be. And it seems very like very cooperating. Near the end of like the prequels, we see a lot of the Republic kind of just telling the Jedi what they can and cannot do, especially with it gets kind of tricky because technically the clone army is the Republic's property, but the Jedi like got them and control them, and it gets kind of hairy, especially in like the whole Fives arc with the inhibitor chip in season 6. But all that to say, it shows in the High Republic how well they can actually work together and use, you know, their strengths, like, you know, the Republic using its political strength with the Jedi using their peacekeeping and helping people strength. And I just think it's great. I'm so excited to keep reading about it. Like, I don't know, there's just, it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting it. I feel like this year has gone by so fast, and I can't believe it's June in a week.
I know. Also, please don't remind me. I'm like not ready to go.
We get the next books not in a week, but next month.
Yeah, so soon.
Crazy.
I'm so excited. Soon. I need to know what happens to my father, Loden Great Storm.
Oh, Loden is like, I know like Avar is obviously a boss and love Avar. Loden was the most surprising character for me because based on his concept art, I was like, oh, he's totally gonna be like a very dogmatic Jedi. Like he looks, I'm judging him based on his appearance, which maybe I shouldn't do.
No, but he does look like.
Yeah. And then he's just this rogue and is like pushing Belle out of his starship. He's like, go land yourself. Good luck. Yeah. It's like, this dude is awesome.
No, Loden gives me extreme Qui-Gon vibes, and Qui-Gon is in my top 3 favorite characters. So like as soon as like the first time he was like, Belle, have fun free falling, I was like, oh my gosh, that is Qui-Gon. And especially Qui-Gon, not even from the Phantom Menace, but Qui-Gon in Master and Apprentice. Like they are one and the same. And they're both my dads. I've decided like, I love, like if I lived in Star Wars, I would want them to be my dads, like 100%. They're just like such good vibes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I need to know because that was not funny, Charles Soule. Like I was not having it when the book ended and we had no idea what was going on.
And poor Belle, who's like, you're gonna be a Jedi Knight. Oh wait, your master's gone. Got it. Cool.
Yeah, I really liked
Cool.
Bell too. And he also like kind of low-key reminded me of a young Obi-Wan. Like it's very similar dynamic, and I really like it. I don't know. It's just Bell's so funny. He's like, well, I guess at one point I remember him falling, I think it was like off the cliff in like somewhere, wherever they were. And I just remember him being like, I can't stop myself, so I guess I'm gonna die. And just like gave up. And then the other Jedi lady like came and saved him. But I was like, buddy.
Fantastic. Gosh. But yeah, no, I am absolutely loving the High Republic. Very excited for more. You're absolutely right. It is the picture of how the Jedi Order and the Republic are supposed to work together. I really love the scene where Jorah, who one of the Jedi Masters, is they're in the council chamber, and they're discussing like how to get involved with the Nile, and with and it's such a great scene because one, it shows that the whole debating within the Jedi Council that we see in the prequel era still exists.
Yeah.
And you even see this in the other books about how some of the Jedi are tired of that debating, and you see it in Into the Dark as well. But Jorah has a fantastic line where she's like, I make my decisions based off of the fact that the Jedi are light. And so if the Jedi are so fully representations of the light side of the Force, then therefore, if what we do as an extension of the light side of the Force has to be the will of the Force, the light side of the Force, period. And so she's saying, her question is like, does the action I'm about to take bring more light to the galaxy?
Yes.
And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to do it. And you don't really ever see that in the prequel era with the Jedi, because it's like you said, they're employees of the Republic rather than servants to the galaxy. And they talk a lot too about that, about how the Jedi Code was supposed to keep them from getting involved in war, and that they were that they were truly supposed to be the negotiators of the Republic and not the soldiers of the Republic. And that line from Jorah, do my actions bring more light to the galaxy, I think is such a beautiful way to sum up what the Jedi were supposed to do and how they were corrupted in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, no, that line is just, I mean, it's probably why the book's called Light of the Jedi. Like, it's so good. And it is really like showing what the Jedi and what the Republic were supposed to be. Like, they were supposed to be a cooperative force helping other people. And I'm really excited because I think we get, is it 3 phases of the High Republic? Like, this was phase 1, and then phase 2 starts like June, I guess. And then I don't know when phase 3 is supposed to be, but because it's Star Wars and they really like to hurt us, I feel like phase 3 is just going to be like really aggressively how everything fell apart. But I am excited to see it because it's so interesting that, like, 200 years is a long time, but like, it's really not, in the grand scheme of things. And so it's interesting to see, like, it was so good, and I totally think it's so good to then fall apart. A side note that's not really has anything to do with like political stuff, but I think it's really interesting that they chose to make the Jedi and the High Republic wearing like mostly whites and golds. Because that really kind of like the symbolism of that just being like, more pure and more on the light side. And then, prequels would get brown, which I love. I mean, obviously that wasn't a conscious like pre-thought out choice, but I feel like maybe they kind of were like, oh, let's do our concept art, make them gold and white, because they are like really really good right now. I don't know. I'm excited. I need to read the comics. I have ordered a few from the library. I'm probably gonna end up buying them because I'm impatient, but that requires going to a comic book store. But I'm really excited because it's so interesting. Like I said, it's so interesting, and low-key, I hope that the rumored Rian Johnson trilogy is High Republic, because I think that would be, I think he would do a really good job of that. I think it would be really good, and I would love it. But I guess we get also like the Acolyte. Not that everything has to be like in TV or movie 100%. Like, there's so much good content in books and comics, but I do feel like the High Republic has a lot to offer, and some people may be turned away from it because it requires reading, which is fair. Like, that's fine. But that's why I think, a movie or a little show would be good to get people really interested in it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different medium, and you can do different things with a different medium, and definitely reach out to more people. And it's like us, we watched the Clone Wars first, we watched the movies first, we watched all of these things first, and now we're getting into the books.
Yes,
and I'm sure however many years down the road, people will hang out with the High Republic characters and whatever visual adaptation happens, and then we'll revisit the books and be like, wow, this is very cool.
Yeah.
And just more Star Wars fans, more people hopping on the what is it, did I call it?
The Bantha bandwagon.
Bantha bandwagon of Star Wars. And it's the best place to be, 100%.
Oh yeah. And especially right now, like, it's such a good time to be a Star Wars fan. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I feel so lucky because there's so much. I mean, I guess there always has been a lot, but like, especially with like shows and movies right now, it's just like, oh my gosh, something to look forward to constantly. Which is great. But that was like all my main like focus points I wanted to hit. Do you have any like last words about Star Wars politics? You don't have to have last words, but I just wanted to make sure you weren't like dying to say something.
I just love it, and I'm excited for more, and I'm excited for you to get this propaganda book and read it and tell me your thoughts.
I'm so excited.
And I will let you know my thoughts of Lost Stars.
I genuinely want a play-by-play update of it. Maybe I'll get it and read along with you. Like, it's so good. I can't.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm a pretty fast reader, and so it's I didn't realize how long it is, but it's also long. YA.
Yeah, so, it's really easy to read. Like, it's if you're over the age of like 16, it's really easy to read. For most people,
so maybe I will definitely post a long reaction on TikTok for you and the other folks who have been waiting for me to read it. And I look forward to diving in.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, for those of you who are still listening to us talk about Star Wars politics for over an hour, thank you. This is incredible. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime. You have so much wisdom to divulge, like, it's perfect. But with that, I will say farewell. Feel free. I'm going to tag Camilla's stuff in the bios of this, so feel free to reach out to us on social media. We would love to hear from you. Don't be mean. We would not love to hear from you if you're going to be mean. All that being said, I hope everyone's having a great day, night, morning, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are listening right now. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Woohoo!